In a quiet town in the United States, Daniel, a 13-year-old, lived with his parents and younger sister like many families. They faced the challenges of modern life, rising costs, fragmented communities, and uncertainties that seemed to lurk behind every decision. Despite these difficulties, their home was filled with love and the small joys of everyday life. One cold winter night, something unthinkable happened. While the family gathered around the table for dinner, Daniel suddenly collapsed without warning. His parents were consumed by panic, their hearts pounding loudly as they desperately called for help. But no amount of pleading or intervention could stop the unimaginable. Daniel's heart stopped beating for almost 9 minutes, rendering him clinically dead. What happened during those 9 minutes would not only transform his family, but also leave a profound impact on everyone who heard his story. When Daniel was revived, he began to recount an experience so extraordinary, it seemed otherworldly. The first thing he remembered was the surreal sensation of floating above his own body. From that vantage point, he observed the chaos unfolding below. He saw himself lying lifeless on the ground, his parents crying and desperately trying to resuscitate him, and his little sister murmuring prayers she had learned in Sunday school. However, amidst the frantic scene, Daniel did not feel fear. Instead, he was enveloped by an overwhelming sense of calm and peace. Shortly after, a gentle force began to push him upward. The familiar world below gradually faded away, replaced by a tunnel bathed in warm, radiant light. Around him he heard soft, reassuring whispers filled with purpose. Among the voices he heard clear words: "You are not finished. Remember what you see." Daniel was transported to a place unlike anything he had ever known. It was a realm that shimmered with a golden light, saturated with an unbreakable sense of serenity and belonging. Daniel felt an indescribable peace, as if he had found his true home. He longed to stay in that place forever, but a subtle pull in his heart hinted that his journey was far from over. As he marveled at this divine realm, a figure approached him. It was Jesus, radiant with a pure, bright light that exuded warmth, love, and undeniable authority. His presence was both gentle and commanding, filling Daniel with a sense of awe and comfort. Smiling, Jesus said, "Daniel, you have been chosen to deliver an important message." At that moment, vivid images began to flood Daniel's mind. He saw the earth in a state of turmoil, cities, forests, and oceans ravaged by disasters. Fires consumed landscapes, floods devastated towns, and conflicts tore communities apart. Overwhelmed by the visions, tears streamed down Daniel's face. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked with a trembling voice. Jesus responded in a calm but firm tone. "This is a world that has lost its way. It has forgotten love, faith, and unity, but there is still time to turn back. You must tell them to return to God and to one another. Only through kindness, forgiveness, and faith can they overcome what awaits them." Though the weight of this mission seemed immense, Jesus reassured Daniel, saying, "Do not be afraid. You are never alone. I am always with you." Before parting, Jesus placed his hand over Daniel's heart, filling him with a powerful warmth that radiated throughout his being. It was as if his very soul had been renewed, leaving him stronger and more determined than ever. The visions Jesus shared with Daniel were vivid and heart-wrenching. Once prosperous cities were reduced to shadows of their former selves, dark, abandoned, and in ruins. Streets were submerged under floodwaters, and familiar landmarks were engulfed by devastating fires. In one vision, a massive hurricane devastated the southern United States, leaving entire communities in ruins. In another, uncontrollable wildfires burned through forests and homes as families cried out in desperation. These images were etched into Daniel's memory, each one more heartbreaking than the last. "These trials are not punishments," Jesus explained with a voice full of compassion. "They are wake-up calls, opportunities for humanity to rediscover faith, unity, and kindness. Daniel also witnessed humanity's internal struggles, seeing people turn against one another, spreading hatred, anger, and division. Jesus warned that the greatest threat to humanity is not external, but internal. People have forgotten what truly matters, but they still have the power to change their course. Daniel was left with a profound sense of purpose. He had seen both the potential for destruction and the path to redemption. His task was clear: to share the message of hope, love, and faith, reminding humanity of its capacity for transformation through his experience. Determined to inspire the world to remember what truly matters before it was too late, Daniel felt a deep sadness and trembled as he asked, "Is it too late? Can we still change what is to come?" With a compassionate gaze, Jesus gently placed his hand on Daniel's shoulder. His touch radiated warmth, and his voice was soft yet firm, conveying a deep sense of tranquility. "No, my child, it is not too late," Jesus said. "No challenge is insurmountable. Redemption is always possible for those who seek it." Sincerely, at that moment, Daniel's visions began to transform. Scenes of chaos and despair faded, replaced by powerful images of hope, resilience, and light. He saw communities rising from the ashes of disasters, people coming together with renewed purpose and love. Houses were rebuilt not just with bricks, but with compassion and unity. Neighbors who were once strangers embraced each other as if they were long-lost family. Acts of kindness multiplied. Food was shared, shelter was offered, and hope was rekindled. In a touching scene, Daniel observed a family that had lost everything. They stood hand in hand, surrounded by strangers who offered warmth, comfort, and care. Despite their loss, their faces radiated gratitude as they smiled through tears, humbled by the love and support that enveloped them like a mantle of grace. Miracles seemed to unfold effortlessly before Daniel's eyes. "This is the power of unity," Jesus explained with a voice imbued with wisdom and love. "Love conquers fear, and faith becomes the bridge to salvation." As the visions continued, Daniel saw hospitals filled with patients whose recoveries defied logic. Doctors and nurses paused to pray before performing surgeries, their faith guiding their hands to achieve results that amazed everyone who witnessed them. In another scene, entire communities gathered under the open sky, kneeling together in prayer. Their collective voices rose like a symphony, and as their prayers ascended, dark clouds above began to part. Sunbeams filtered through, illuminating the earth below. The air felt refreshed, brimming with hope and life. "Prayer is powerful," Jesus said in a reverent yet emphatic tone. "It opens hearts, transforms energy, and invites miracles into the world." Daniel's visions continued to reveal the extraordinary transformation of individuals. He saw people who had been consumed by anger and despair, finding peace through faith and forgiveness. Old enemies reconciled, embracing each other with tears of understanding and repentance. Families torn apart by years of conflict found the courage to mend their broken bonds, rediscovering the love that had been buried beneath the pain. Individuals who had once felt lost and purposeless awakened to a new sense of meaning and direction. "Tell them," Jesus urged with a penetrating yet kind gaze, "that each person has the power to heal not only themselves, but the entire world. Through acts of love, kindness, and forgiveness, they can reshape their future and build a brighter tomorrow." As Daniel listened, a deep understanding washed over him. The destruction he had witnessed was not meant to punish humanity, but to awaken it, to test its capacity to grow and change. Jesus explained that storms, fires, and conflicts are moments of growth that test the strength of the human spirit and reveal its capacity for resilience. In the darkest moments, people are given the opportunity to shine in all their splendor. Finally, Jesus spoke of the importance of personal faith. His voice conveyed a profound serenity as he said, "Each soul must turn inward and reconnect with me." Faith does not guarantee a life free of challenges, but it provides the strength to endure, overcome, and bring light where there is darkness. When the final vision faded, Daniel felt a peace he had never known. He understood that the future was not set in stone, but was changing and waiting to be shaped by humanity's decisions. Jesus smiled at Daniel with a look of infinite love and said, "Share this message with courage and love. Remind them that I am always with them." Before Daniel could respond, Jesus gently placed his hand on his heart. A wave of warmth enveloped him, filling him with unbreakable strength, and a love so deep it seemed infinite. "You will remember everything," Jesus said. "You will carry my love within you, and even when others doubt you, I will guide you. You are never alone." Though the idea of leaving heaven seemed like the hardest decision he had ever faced, Daniel nodded in understanding. He knew his purpose was not yet fulfilled. With a heart full of determination and a spirit renewed by divine love, he prepared to return to the world that so desperately needed his message of hope. As Jesus gently withdrew, Daniel felt a subtle but firm tug, as if his very essence was being guided back. The overwhelming brightness that had enveloped him began to fade, replaced by the feeling of being grounded by the weight of his body. The harmonious symphony of heaven, once so vivid and encompassing, began to retreat into silence until it vanished completely, leaving only the stillness of his own consciousness. Suddenly, a sharp sensation jolted him back to reality, and Daniel gasped for air. His surroundings filled with a cacophony of frantic voices and the constant beeping of medical machines. "He's back!" exclaimed a doctor in astonishment. His mother, overwhelmed with joy and relief, ran to him and hugged him tightly. Although Daniel's mind was clouded with confusion, a deep sense of peace overcame him, a calmness that seemed to transcend his disorientation. In the days that followed, Daniel began to share his extraordinary experience. While some dismissed it as nothing more than a vivid dream, others listened attentively and felt the undeniable truth in his words. Daniel never argued with those who doubted him. He simply repeated the message Jesus had entrusted to him. It is not too late. The future is still open to change. We must love, forgive, and return to faith. Only through these attitudes can we face and overcome what awaits us. His family, especially his mother, believed wholeheartedly, seeing in him a transformation that went beyond the surface. They could perceive the silent strength, the newfound confidence, and the unwavering purpose that radiated from him. The boy who had once collapsed in that moment of crisis was no longer the same Daniel. He now carried a message of hope and faith that would inspire countless people. When Daniel finally opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was his mother's tear-streaked face, full of hope. Floating above him, her soft, trembling voice whispered his name in disbelief, as if fearing he might disappear again. Around them, the room seemed to hold its breath, frozen in time. The doctors and nurses remained motionless, eyes fixed on the monitor that now showed a steady, rhythmic heartbeat. "It's impossible," murmured a doctor in disbelief. "He was gone, but Daniel is back." Although he was weak and physically drained, Daniel's mind was clear and resolute. He knew exactly where he had been and, more importantly, why he had returned. His mother embraced him tightly, her tears mixing with relief and gratitude. In a soft voice, Daniel broke the silence. "Mom, I saw Jesus." His simple yet profound words hung in the air, and for a moment, the entire room fell silent. The doctors exchanged bewildered glances, and the nurses whispered softly, trying to process the impossibility of what they were hearing. To some, Daniel's words might have seemed the incoherent ramblings of a child recovering from a traumatic experience. But to his mother, every syllable carried the weight of truth. She clung to his hand, her voice laden with emotion as she gently asked, "What did you say, Daniel?" He breathed slowly and deliberately, then began to recount his experience. He spoke of the radiant tunnel of light, the breathtaking beauty of heaven, and the powerful presence of Jesus. He described visions of storms, floods, fires, and communities fractured by division and discord. But most importantly, he shared the message Jesus had entrusted to him. Jesus said the world can still change, Daniel explained with a firm and sincere voice. We must love one another, forgive one another, and return to faith. Only through these attitudes can we face and overcome what awaits us. If we don't, things will only get worse. At first, the people gathered in the room were unsure how to respond. There was a boy who had been clinically dead for almost 10 minutes, now alive and recounting vivid visions of heaven, a divine warning. Some were moved by the certainty in his voice, while others dismissed it as mere consequences of oxygen deprivation. However, for those who listened with open hearts, Daniel's words planted a seed of hope, a spark of faith that would continue to grow and spread in the days to come. As Daniel's story spread far and wide, something truly extraordinary began to happen in the United States and beyond. Seemingly inexplicable events started to occur, small miracles, moments of grace that seemed to confirm the truth of Daniel's message. People who heard his story and accepted his words experienced transformations in their own lives. It was as if the very fabric of reality had changed, and the power of love, forgiveness, and faith began to radiate outward, touching the hearts of many. One powerful example was a single mother struggling to make ends meet who had discovered Daniel's story online. She found herself praying every day, asking for strength and guidance to overcome her challenges. Days later, out of nowhere, she received an unexpected job offer, one that would not only provide for her children, but also restore her hope. It was as if God had heard me for the first time, she said through tears. Daniel's message reminded me that I needed to believe again. Her life changed not only because of the job offer, but also because of the renewed faith ignited within her. In communities devastated by natural disasters, there were stories of resilience and unity that seemed to reflect Daniel's central message. In a town ravaged by floods, neighbors who had barely spoken before began working together in a spirit of cooperation. They rebuilt homes, shared food, and offered each other comfort. "We are stronger together," said a volunteer. Daniel was right. Love can heal anything. Healing was not only physical, but also emotional and spiritual, as hearts that had been broken began to mend through the collective power of love and community. Even the most ardent skeptics realized that more and more stories of miraculous recoveries, unexpected opportunities, and profound spiritual awakenings were emerging. A man who had lost all faith after his wife's death decided to enter a church for the first time in years. He sat quietly on a pew, praying in silence for a sign that he was not alone in his pain. A week later, he found himself surrounded by a group of strangers who welcomed him into their community during a religious event. "I felt like I had been asleep for years and finally woke up," he said. Daniel's words were true. God has not abandoned us. We just stopped listening. His encounter with that community was more than a moment of connection. It was a divine awakening, a reminder that faith and hope are always within our reach, even in the darkest moments. On social media, messages of hope and transformation began to spread like wildfire. Posts proclaiming, "Change starts with us," and "Jesus is near," filled feeds, and churches overflowed with faithful followers. Prayer groups multiplied, and people from all walks of life began sharing their own stories of change and renewal, inspired by Daniel's simple yet powerful words. "Jesus told me that even the smallest act of love can change the world," Daniel frequently said, and his words resonated deeply. Families torn apart by years of anger and resentment reconciled, while individuals trapped in cycles of fear and negativity discovered the peace they had longed for. The miracles that unfolded were not always grand or transcendent, but they were real, silent yet profound acts of transformation that impacted the lives of those who embraced them. It became clear that Daniel's message was not just a fleeting moment. It was a movement that touched the hearts of everyone open to change. Skeptics, journalists, and theologians debated Daniel's experience, each seeking explanations or scientific proof. However, despite their efforts, no one could deny the profound impact his story had on countless lives. Whether you believe in heaven or not, you can't deny the hope this boy has given people, a journalist commented, acknowledging that Daniel's message transcended the boundaries of faith. Despite all the attention and miracles unfolding around him, Daniel remained steadfast and humble. "No, it's not about me," he used to say with a firm and convincing voice. "It's about all of us coming together. Jesus gave us a second chance, and it's up to us to seize it." His words, spoken with such sincerity, became a guiding light for others, a call to action for everyone to embrace love, faith, and unity in their own lives. Daniel had received a gift, and now he was sharing it with the world, one heart at a time.